Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. And as always, as you're watching this video, make sure to hit that like button and check out everything that we have for you in the description below, where you can go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and of course visit our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and also sign up for our expert picks. And all that information, of course, is in the description below, but I can promise you, for all those things, you do not want to miss out on that exclusive and extra college football content. And today we are bringing you our Week 4 Game of the Week. And of course, it's no surprise that the Game of the Week in Week 4 is number 7 Notre Dame traveling to number 3 Georgia. None of the other games on the Week 4 slate compares to this game. Doesn't compare to it in terms of how big it is for the college football playoff, and I don't think it compares to it on how good this game will be. Many people out there think that Georgia is going to take care of easy business. They're going to blow out the Fighting Irish. Some Notre Dame faithful believe that they're going to come on the road to Athens and annihilate the Bulldogs, and I don't think either of those is correct. The FPI is giving Georgia a 67.3% chance to win this game, and Georgia is right now a 13.5-point favorite in this game. And I believe both of those, the percentage and the spread, are pretty high, a little too high, as a matter of fact. These two teams last met in 2017. That was the first regular season meeting in history between these two historic programs. And it's just amazing how much can change in such a short amount of time. How much can change in just 2 years. Back when these teams met in 2017, Jake Fromm was making his first ever career start. We all know that Jacob Eason got hurt in the season opener. Fromm relieved him in that win over Appalachian State and then came in for this Notre Dame game. Number 15 Georgia in South Bend defeated the 24th ranked Fighting Irish 20-19. The quarterback for Notre Dame was Brandon Wimbush, who was strip sacked at the end. The fumble was recovered by Lorenzo Carter with 1:27 left, which sealed the Bulldogs' victory on the road in South Bend. I think really proved that Georgia at that time was a legitimate college football playoff contender. They were 15th at the time. Many expected a big year out of Georgia in 2017, but that game, winning that game on the road against a good Notre Dame team, that really showed that they were legit for that season. Of course, that was the year they went all the way to the national championship before falling to Alabama. So we're going to break down this 2019 matchup. What to expect out of the two quarterbacks, what to expect out of the defenses, and how each team can win this game between the hedges in Athens. And we'll start with quarterback play. That's, of course, going to be the storyline for this game with two of the best quarterbacks in the nation, in Jake Fromm and Ian Book, and will be the difference maker in whether or not Georgia runs away with this game or whether Notre Dame can keep it close and maybe pull off the upset. And we'll start with the home team. We'll start with Jake Fromm, who, yes, is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire nation. And keep in mind, he's only a junior. Since he took over in that Notre Dame game back in 2017, Fromm has thrown for 5,965 yards, 59 touchdowns, and just 13 interceptions. He led the Bulldogs to a college football playoff appearance and then a national championship appearance in 2017. And last year led them to the Sugar Bowl, where, of course, they fell to Texas. During his time as a starter, Fromm is 23-5 with the Bulldogs, and this year he already has 601 yards and 5 touchdowns. So, like I said, it's just amazing how much can change in a span of just a few years. No one expected Jake Fromm to play in 2017, but it's always a next man up mentality, and Fromm answered the call, never relinquished his job, didn't let Eason get it back, didn't let Justin Fields come in and take it from him, and has solidified himself as the starter for Georgia and one of the best starters in the country. Ian Book, on the other hand, a fairly similar story. Came in last year to relieve Brandon Wimbush, who just wasn't getting the job done for the Fighting Irish offense. Yeah, Wimbush led them to a victory in Week 1 over Michigan. But as the season went on, Brian Kelly realized that he was not the answer. He was not the guy that was going to get Notre Dame to the college football playoff. Ian Book was that man. You saw a drastic change in Notre Dame's offense when they made that quarterback switch, and he already has 553 yards and 6 touchdowns this season, and he's also Notre Dame's leading rusher right now, rushing for over 100 yards, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 2019. And that's a bit of a cause of concern, and we'll address that here in a second. But the fact that Ian Book, who is has proven that he can be a dual threat, but is not your typical dual threat quarterback. The fact that he is Notre Dame's leading rusher and not an actual running back on the Fighting Irish's roster. Both of these teams so far, Notre Dame facing off against Louisville and New Mexico, and Georgia facing off against Vanderbilt, Murray State, and Arkansas State. Each of these teams has averaged over 500 yards per game in each of those victories. So you can expect some big-time offensive numbers to be put up once again when these two teams meet up on Saturday night. And of course, once again, it's a night game in Athens, primetime CBS. You could not ask for anything better than this. It's very rare that we get to see two top 10 matchups within the first 4 weeks of the season. We are extremely lucky that that is happening right now. We saw LSU and Texas back in week 2, and now we're seeing Notre Dame and Georgia in week 4. Two top 10 matchups in a span of just 2 weeks. Unbelievable. So we're going to look at some matchups to watch in this game. Once again, a game that is so critical to each of these teams' college football playoff chances. The winner of this game will get a huge resume-boosting win. Of course, it will not affect either team's conference. Notre Dame, of course, not even being in a conference. But the loser of this game will have not a lot of room for error as the season goes on. Defensively, this is where it's going to be a problem for Notre Dame. The matchup to watch for Notre Dame is Georgia's running backs going up against Notre Dame's rushing defense. If Notre Dame wants to win this game, if they want to keep this game close, they have to stop the run. Notre Dame's rushing defense entering week 4 is 120th in the nation. That is not going to get the Fighting Irish to the college football playoff. They're allowing 230.5 rushing yards per game, including 212 rushing yards to New Mexico last week. That is a major cause of concern, especially when you're going up against one of the better running backs in the SEC in DeAndre Swift, who is averaging 9.4 yards per carry this season, and he's running behind one of the best offensive lines in the entire nation. If Notre Dame wants to win this game, they have to shut down the run. They have to show a drastic improvement in just a week's time from that abysmal performance against New Mexico defensively to now a big game against a top team in the SEC, a top team in the nation in Georgia. For the Bulldogs, the matchup to watch for them is their secondary. How will Georgia's secondary fare against Notre Dame's wide receivers, of course, who are going to be thrown balls by Ian Book? Once again, a great quarterback. And I'm not dogging on Georgia's secondary here, but keep in mind that their rushing defense has been phenomenal. Their passing defense, if you have to find a cause of concern, that's where it's at. Georgia's allowing 182.3 passing yards per game, which is not a bad mark. But they did allow 261 passing yards to Murray State. They also allowed 17 points from the Racers, and that's something that kind of keep in mind as well. They had a great bounce-back performance against Arkansas State, shutting the Red Wolves out. But once again, this is the first true test for Georgia. And how will they face off against Notre Dame's wide receivers, where the Fighting Irish certainly have the edge there with Chase Claypool, Chris Fink, and Javon McKinley. All great wide receivers for the Fighting Irish, all very reliable targets for Ian Book as they try to win this game between the hedges. So that's going to test a very strong Georgia secondary that, once again, is not bad by any means. Richard LeCount, J.R. Reed, Tyson Campbell, just to name a few, in that Georgia secondary that will continue to make huge plays over the course of the season and maybe even in this game. But those are two major matchups to watch. Notre Dame, of course, has to win this game through the air because they haven't proven that they can run that well. Georgia needs to shut down Notre Dame's passing game. If they do that, they're going to be on their way to victory. And, of course, that's where the keys for the game come in. And look, we didn't just list them all. We didn't want to spoil it too much. We're going to give you some more analysis on those keys. And we'll start with Notre Dame if they want to win this game. Because no one's giving them a fighting chance. Let's be honest. The FPI is only giving them about 32% chance to win this game. Many people are writing them off, saying that they're going to lose, not even going to put up a fight. And let's just pump the brakes for a second. But if Notre Dame wants to win this game, like we said, they have to stop the run. They have to stop DeAndre Swift. They cannot allow Georgia to be balanced. They cannot allow them to be balanced because Notre Dame themselves is not balanced. Notre Dame is averaging 313.5 passing yards per game, while only averaging 193.5 rushing yards per game. Georgia, on the other hand, is averaging 278.7 passing yards per game and averaging 286.7 rushing yards per game. Georgia has found their balance offensively. Notre Dame has not. They're going to have to find balance, but also make Georgia unbalanced, make them one-dimensional. Jake Fromm can win this game through the air. Unlike some teams, if you take away their dominant running game, they might be in trouble pass-wise. That's not going to be the case with Georgia. Jake Fromm can beat the Fighting Irish through the air, but if you make them one-dimensional and can hold in on that passing game, it might make life a little bit easier and give them a better chance in this matchup. For Georgia, their key is to pressure Ian Book, because we mentioned Notre Dame hasn't really shown us a rushing game. They haven't. Ian Book's the leading rusher right now. The other running backs really haven't shown me that much from this Fighting Irish offense. So pressure Ian Book. Make his life miserable in the backfield. If you can pressure him, I don't believe Notre Dame can rush against Georgia, who's only allowing an average of 60.7 rushing yards per game. The rushing game's not going to get going that much. You pressure Ian Book into some turnovers, you pressure him some bad throws, you rattle him early, it could be a very long day for the Fighting Irish. But of course, if Georgia wants to do that, they're going to have to get past Notre Dame's offensive line. We praise Georgia's offensive line as being one of the best in the nation. Notre Dame returns 4 starters from last season and do have one of the more experienced offensive lines in the entire nation. So those are your keys. Those are the matchups to watch. A little bit of history between these two schools, of course, meeting just a few years ago. What's going to happen in Athens this Saturday? I can tell you that Georgia will, in fact, win this game. I do not expect it to be a blowout. I expect Georgia to win this game by 10. I'm thinking 10 points or less is going to be the margin of victory. And people will be quick to point out how poorly Notre Dame played against Clemson in the college football playoff, saying that if they could hardly get any offense going against Clemson last year, how can they defeat Georgia? How can they even keep it close against the Bulldogs? It's a different year, it's a different team, it's a different environment, it's a different setting. Everything has changed in a span of 1 year. We said at the beginning how quickly things can change. And that's exactly what's going to happen for Notre Dame. Last year is in the past. They're looking to get to the college football playoff. I think they could still be in the running with a loss here, but they're going to have to win out, of course. Same for Georgia. If they lose here, they're going to have to probably win out. One other loss could eliminate them from college football playoff contention. But it's a huge playoff matchup. It's a huge game that has playoff implications, and we could not ask for any way and anything better to conclude our Saturday night of college football. We are extremely lucky to be seeing this game. Georgia takes care of business at home against the Fighting Irish, but it will be closer than many think. So guys, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure you go check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. And of course, check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and also sign up for our expert picks, which will give you every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks for just $30. And our Week 4 spread picks have already been released. They've been released today. So don't miss out on that extra content. Don't miss out on that opportunity. Check it all out in the description below, thegridironexpert.com. And once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.